On the night of November 8th, 2018, my wife and I had been out to dinner, and about 9:30 the phone rang. I would say it's the phone call that no parent ever wants to hear. She was just an incredible human being, a vibrant, active, smart, fun-loving, popular young woman who had never been in trouble, ever, in school or any other time, had never really done anything wrong. She was an outstanding student from elementary school through college. She graduated with honors from Cedarburg High School. She went to the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and graduated with a degree in psychology. She did very well as a paralegal. She was a hard worker. She, was on her performance appraisals, always did quite well. I saw some of her work. She showed it to me, such as affidavits and briefs and legal research she did. And it didn't surprise me because she was very bright and very analytical. In high school, she was also very active in athletics. She was on the varsity women's soccer team. Cedarburg High School is known for its soccer program, and she was one of the leading scorers. And she was very popular. She was also involved in various activities, including charity type of things in high school. I distinctly remember at Christmas in 2017, had dinner with Beth Ann, my wife and I did, at a nice restaurant in Milwaukee, and she had fallen the day before, slipped on the ice. And she was carrying some gifts, and as she fell back on her right side, and she fractured 2 ribs around her side here, which if you've ever even been punched in a rib, you know how painful it is. And I said, well, are you taking something for it? And she said, yeah, they put me on a prescription painkiller. And I said, well, what is it? And it was one of the, OxyContin or Oxycodone or Vicodin or something like that. And she said, yeah, it makes a lot of difference. If I didn't have that, I don't know how I would do it. And I said, well, don't take too many of those. You don't want to mess around. Those are opioids. And she knew about that. My son, who lives in Houston, is married and has his wife and 2 grandsons, 5 and 3 of mine, wonderful boys. They were visiting around July 4th of 2018, and my daughter-in-law had lunch with Beth Ann or got together at some point along with Patty, and later told me before they went home that she was concerned about Beth Ann, that Beth Ann looked thin. She didn't look right in the face. She didn't act right. Her eyes didn't look right. And she actually told me that she said, I know this is unheard of in our family, no one, but could it be possible that she might be doing some drugs? And I said, I don't think so. But so there were little things that occurred in that time frame leading up to the fall of 2018 that were hints. Another hint was Beth Ann was totally self-sufficient with regard to money. I mentioned earlier that she was a saver. She never borrowed any money from me or her mother. Her mother did co-sign on her condo, but Beth Ann needed to borrow some money from me, telling me that she had overspent, that she'd gotten in a little bit of trouble on her spending, and that she needed some help. And of course, I came to her rescue and I gave her a couple of $1,000s. It was a loan, but I then later told her, don't worry about paying me back. Unbeknownst to me, she also borrowed about $2,000 or $3,000 from her mother. So in a span of time, of a couple of months in that summer of 2018, she had borrowed maybe maybe as much as $6,000. For what? No one really picked up on that, although Patty and I were communicating a little bit more at this point about Beth Ann and becoming concerned as we moved into the fall of 2018. Right around Halloween, Beth Ann and I scheduled lunch. I met her downtown. It was a cool, very cold fall day for Milwaukee. She was dressed in a sweater and jeans and all, and she looked gorgeous. I didn't really notice it, but I was told later after she died that she had lost over 10 pounds, but she was in heavy clothes, so I didn't really notice it. I remember she was as happy as could be, that it was probably the best time that I had had with her in years. and we were talking about things. We were watching football. We were having a few beers. We had a great burger. We probably spent an hour, hour and a half there. And I remember there was something about her eyes that didn't quite seem right too, and I didn't pay much attention to it. And the other thing is she seemed very fidgety, you know, nervous, moving around, folding her arms, uncrossing her legs, crossing her legs, looking around. And that struck me more than anything, but I really didn't think much about it. Her mother and I communicated by phone within a week or two after that. And she was supposed to have dinner with her, which she frequently did on Sunday night, at her house. And Beth Ann was scheduled to go over there, and Patty was going to talk to her that night. And she told me that she was going to try and get inside of her and find out what was going on, because she was becoming increasingly concerned. And I said, "Do you want me to be there?" And she said, "No, not necessary." I think we were in somewhat denial, and that is partly what the guilt that I live with to this day. And I suspect I'm very hard on myself about this, but I suspect many other people have experienced this too. I would say it's the phone call that no parent ever wants to hear, but it was Patty. She was hysterical, and she said, "I'm at the hospital." Beth Ann collapsed in her apartment. When the paramedics got there, her heart had stopped. She was not breathing. She was laying on the floor. She'd come out of the shower. It was about, I guess, 8:30, 8:45 in the evening. And interestingly, from what I've gathered, no one told the EMTs that she'd taken drugs. Anyway, she was revived by CPR. We got her heart started. Her heart stopped again on the way to the hospital. They revived her again. She had gone for, they estimated it, more than 6 minutes and maybe as long as 10 minutes without oxygen. A few moments later, the door opened just like in the movies, and out comes the doctor with the white coat and the stethoscope, and he puts his arm around us and takes us back to a conference room, and he proceeds to tell us that Beth Ann had suffered from an overdose compounded by, or at least asthma probably had something to do with it, making it worse, that it was cocaine, and there was also fentanyl, and it was a dangerous amount of fentanyl, and that she had suffered the loss of oxygen, deprivation of oxygen for quite some time, and that he was very concerned about serious brain damage. You can imagine going from this wonderful young girl with a bright future, who maybe made a few missteps in the last 8 months of her life, to laying there on full life support, a ventilator, and is, for all intents and purposes, gone. We were told the outlook was not good. In fact, it was grim, but the neurologist would examine her the next morning. And of course, by then, relatives started arriving the next day. We had people come from all over the country. We had her friends there. The intensive care waiting room at St. Mary's was occupied by people from our family for the next 3 days. So at that point, the neurologist looked at her. I think that was Sunday, and then again Monday. There were two, and they also some other physicians. And they informed us that there was no sign of responsiveness, that she could not breathe on her own. Her heart was strong and still beating, though, and but she would have no consciousness whatsoever. She would not know our presence. She would never speak again. She would never move again. So on Tuesday, we held a bedside vigil with her immediate family and her closest friends, and there was a priest there, and I'll never forget that. What I learned also was that Beth Ann was an organ donor, and so that was coordinated and her kidney was a perfect match for a man who was number 3 on the list nationally in need of a kidney. He was going to probably die in 4 days if he didn't get a matched kidney. Her kidney matched perfectly. So her kidney was harvested, her other kidney went to another person, and then she was pronounced dead Tuesday night. Her funeral was on Saturday at a church up in between north of Cedarburg, a non-denominational church. There was over 200 people there, many of her high school friends, some of her college friends, family from all over. Incredible outpouring of grief, and we actually had, like so many funerals that you see in Wisconsin, this part of the country, a party at a local pub in Cedarburg after the funeral, and we celebrated her life there, and there was many more or less testimonials about Beth Ann and so forth, which kind of took the edge off a little bit. Fentanyl, which was in her system, and which the Milwaukee medical examiner told me that that's actually what killed her. And she probably had no idea that the fentanyl was there. But if you go and buy illicit drugs off the street from a drug dealer or whoever, you run the risk. You don't know what's in that, and you run the risk of it killing you. And that's exactly what happened to my daughter. And that's just tragic. Just tragic. And it'll happen again. Is be aware. If you think there's a problem, deal with it head on. Seek help. And now the problem is, you always think of this as being, oh, these are teenagers doing drugs. No, my daughter was 34 years old. And it's not just people from different, you might think, well, the socioeconomic, it's maybe from the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. It's all. I mean, there are doctors out there, unfortunately, that have addictions. But, I think it's what the Walworth County Drug and Alcohol Coalition is doing right now. It's certainly at the very basic, it's awareness, getting information to the public, making them aware of what can happen, the dangers of this, and what to look out for. I didn't look out enough. I think I was in denial that something was going on here. It's prevention, and that would involve working with the other various organizations. It goes along with awareness. And it's doing all the things you do. For example, the website, walcodac.com, is an excellent website to get information, about this problem and how to deal with it. And it also offers you resources that you can go to get help. And there's one of the nice things they do that I attended, I think my 3rd or 4th session, is they train with this miracle drug, Narcan. Narcan is a lifesaver for someone who is suffering from an opioid overdose. Had they had Narcan, and that had gotten to my daughter early enough, she might be alive today. Take action. If you think there's something there may very well be. Don't wait. Do it now. Get help. Seek help. Avail yourself of all the services that are out there through this organization and other organizations, because it just may save that loved one's life. It's something that you never get over completely. I've talked to people who have suffered, the loss of a child or even a loved one. It doesn't matter who it is. You never really get over it, but this was traumatic. She was only 34 by 3 weeks. And you think, I'm the old guy. I'm the one that's going to die first. You don't think you're going to lose a child.